Zoom is all fun and games until you hear the trash truck coming. Okay, so to get started with this paper, what I want you to know is that this essay brainstorm, I don't want you to get scared. Basically, this is your chance to kind of vomit out all of your ideas. You are not going to put this much in. It's just to kind of help you work through and think through what you will have to put in. So, for instance, inquiry. This is what we talked about in the beginning. What is your question? You know, we all started off with a question. And so, some it was like, how did cars come to be? Or why do we feel the emotions we feel? You know, there was that one first question, and it might have started with like a who, how, when, why, where, what if. That's kind of the leading. Your question should start off that way. And it's really just that first question. What first sparked this whole movement? Um, After that, the second one's a little tricky because it's talking about looking at your photos. Now, some of you haven't uploaded, and that's okay. But this is kind of what you're going to think about as you're taking your photos. Because what we care about is how are you exploring this inquiry? How is that an actual exploration? How do I see that in your photos? And so what this whole section of number 2 is about is telling the viewer, because you're not, how do I say this? You're being graded on what you're writing simply as in, are you expressing what they're looking at? So for instance, let's say your third photo is a particular sculpture, and what you were trying to do with that was something very specific. In this number 2 section, you're just going to write about that. You know, like, you know, the photos you're going to take of your work, you know, whether it's process photos, you know, maybe you might talk more about a process because you tried something new or something didn't work and you had to revise. You know, this is kind of the area to just vomit out your ideas of how am I exploring. You know, this was what my question was about, and this is what I was trying to do, and this is what I wanted to figure out. Because what's going to happen is you guys are going to fill this all out. This is going to get huge. It's going to expand. It's going to be very, very big. But when you actually go to the College Board and the written evidence, hold on, College Board's being slow. Oh, let me tap my name. Actually, I'm just still in Julian's account. When you go to the written portion, it's very small. You know, they're asking you to put in 1,200 characters, but that's also kind of a lie, because it's not 1,200 characters, or I should say it is 1,200 characters. So periods, spaces, apostrophes, all of those count. You know, those are all taking away from your 1,200. So when you come up and I'm having you work on this, you're going to give way more information than what is required for what we're actually going to submit. The goal of this is to get the ums and the I think, you know, to just let it all come out. Don't be afraid. Just put it all out there in complete sentences. Maybe you just want to do bullet points. Maybe you just want to I don't know what I'm doing. So now you can start thinking, okay, well, since this is asking me to talk about this and I don't know if I do it, let me see while I'm working right now, am I doing it? You know, to try to kind of have that thought in there. Because what we're going to do is pull from this to kind of build this. Like, this is going to be a nice, very tight, concise, this is what I'm doing. Because they're asking you here. Now, number 3, what materials did you use? That's going to come in actually with your images. Like, obviously, when you write, depending on the material might be very specific to what you're doing. Like, for instance, Nicole, her material is very specific to the message she's giving in her sculpture. It's not just like, oh, I'm using paper. You know, she's using something specific because that's also part of the message. But when you go into uploading your photos, it will also ask you, what materials are you using? And it's very simple. Paper, you know, you don't have to do any adhesive stuff. Like, you don't have to say hot glue or glue, unless it's paper mache. Then, you know, that's a artistic technique. That's a little bit different from like Elmer's glue. But you would legit just put in your materials. So over here, that's what you're gonna kind of talk about. And what it's asking is, how do the materials relate? And for some of you, they don't. Some of you, that's not it. Some of you, it is. You know, like Gracie, you're talking about this idea of what makes us happy. So your materials might be very specific to your question. You know, let's say they're photographs of family. Well, that's not, you didn't just like get the photo place cards out of like, you know, when you buy picture frames from JCPenney's and there's like this random family smiling. You know, you took something that is maybe very specific. So that matters. You know, they want to know like, why that material? Did it have anything to do with your question? Maybe it didn't, maybe it did. You know, I know Daniel is working with a lot of like wooden pieces, and so are you, Gracie. Because he's kind of showing an evolution, you know, from wood to something a little bit more technically advanced. So that material does matter, and they want to know about it. You know, when you come and start putting it in, this is just going to be straight materials, like a list of, you know, what do you use. When you go to discuss it, though, all of this matters to what you're working on. All of this is going to kind of give that essence of your portfolio. Why did those matter? For number 4, it talks about the processes. And processes tend to get students a little confused, because what it's asking is, what did you do? Like, how did you come about building it? It's not just, you know, like if you're gluing two things together, yeah, that's the process. You got these two things, you put glue on them and you put them together. What they're asking is, let's say, for instance, let's say I was doing something about family. So my material are all photographs of family members that are my family members. And my process is, I was taking those photographs and I was cutting people out. And I was cutting people out because of a fight within a family. Okay, now that process is very specific to what my message is trying to bring. I wasn't just cutting up pictures. You know, I'm not just cutting up magazines. So what they're asking is, was there a process? Was there a process that you were doing? Now, it may not be that intentional. You know, for instance, Julian was working on a lot of clay, and his process, you know, could just be, I was trying to manipulate clay to give specific facial features. Well, that's very different. You know, it's not so much this all-inspiring process of, you know, I was solving world hunger. It was more like, you know, I was manipulating clay, or I was trying to figure out how to get clay to do this. You know, so it's kind of like, how does this lead back to your question? Why are you doing it? Why does it matter? Does it matter? Because again, we just have this little area, and they're not telling you, like, what they're asking is this: what is your question? And now describe it. And that's it. Like, so this is way more in depth, this paper, this brainstorming, because I want you kind of to just vomit out your ideas. Just get it all out. This isn't what we're going to put, but this is going to be kind of that life support before we start typing into College Board, because we can pull from this. You know, we can refine this. I can look at it and I can help you with, you know, expanding on something. You know, I could just keep questioning you about certain things that maybe will bring up other things. So it's good. Like, this is going to be a lot more mental spewing, and then we're going to refine it. Because what they want to know is, how are you showing evidence of practice? And a lot of you don't practice. You just jump. But your failures are also practice too. Like, let's say something didn't work. You're like, well, that sucked. Okay, now I need, and that's part of it too, because it also asks, are you revising? And it might be something as simple as, yes, I did revise because this wasn't working. And it's not so much that you were experimenting, but it was like, hey, I was trying to have this work. It didn't. I solved this problem. They kind of want to know about that stuff. That's what, that's why College Board changed this portfolio. They know you can create artwork. They know you can create artwork well. That's not I think they just kind of got bored with well done artwork. There's so many kids all over the world that can do art very well. What they want to know is like your thoughts behind it. What is pushing you? What is causing you to change? What is an obstacle? They want to know almost like a TED Talk or like Art 21, if you've ever seen those, where it's kind of like the artist discussing, like, hey, I had this idea and I wanted to run with it. This is what I was messing with. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. They kind of want to know the behind the scenes, that it's not just like, oh, you're making amazing artwork. It's like, what pushed you to make that work? Or what, did you get stuck on? Or what did you have to revise? And so that's what this is. It's really just, I want you to vomit all over this paper with just ideas. Like, don't be scared about these like boxes. Just put one box and just do bullet points or full sentences or half sentences or a list of, I think this is what I'm talking about. I just want to have something from you guys that I can help you work with. And that's the biggest challenge is if I don't see, like, I can't see inside your head. And I think I know how you're working on stuff, but that doesn't mean that is how you're working on your stuff. Like, I can only guess. I'm like, okay, if I were Gracie, this is what I would do. You know what I mean? So if I have this, where you're just, you might fill in a million things for materials and have maybe one thing for process and maybe a million things for something else. Don't worry about the describe by number, because you haven't put your photos in yet. You will be putting your photos in, and that's when we can come back and like within your writing, you can, like, let's say you highlight something. You can say, as you see in photo 12, or actually we don't have that many, in photo 5 or artwork number 5, whatever. What I was trying, so you can be specific. So when they look at that artwork, what you're telling them, they can go back to it and be like, oh, I see what she was saying, or oh, I see how she figured that, or maybe it's a collage. When looking at my photo 3 collage, what you'll notice is I was working through so those are when you can like specifically put in, but until we put up those photos, you don't know where they're going to go. And then speaking of the photos, so here's our written evidence. That's what you guys are working on. Just kind of take this and just write as much as you can, and it's going to be hard because some of it's going to ask you for things that you don't think about. But that's good. Force yourself to think about it. Force yourself, like this whole list 5 action verbs. Action, meaning it's not passive. What are you doing? What steps are you taking? These are just things that we can use to build this written portion. When we go up to here in the images, so this is your sustained investigation. Now, what you'll notice is that it still goes up to 15. Now, you are only putting in 10 photos, but College Board will not let you submit this portfolio with these empty spaces. So what I've done is, if you go, all of you guys got this, I shared this folder with you, AP resources. When you go inside here, it has like how to collage on slides. It has how to use the editing app. Artists today that kind of use inquiry in their artwork. It also has these guys, the PDFs, and these are of students from last year. and their written portion, their images, things like that. So if you want to take a look at that. But up here, portfolio placeholders. Now what has to happen is you have to put an image in. There has to be something in these gaps, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So when you go over here, pick one. I made 6 of them, and you're just gonna dump those in. Like, so for instance, with Julian, let's see, file upload. Well, mine are on my laptop, so okay, let's say I pick this one. Open. Now there's my photo, height, NA, no dashes, no nothing, with NA. You have to have all these boxes filled because College Board loves to mess with us. And this is it. No dashes, no periods, no nothing. And so also when we start, and I'll go into this more with you guys when we get, like, probably next week, when you go in to start filling in the characters and the processes, it doesn't like apostrophes for some reason. I'm also thinking no periods. I think commas are okay. I'll have to double check, but some students are having trouble with that. But literally, you're just gonna pick a photo and then just keep dropping it in, dropping it in, dropping it in, and just NA, NA, NA. That's it. Even with your collages will be a photo of like a bunch of little pictures, NA, 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 and then materials, NA, process. Now you can kind of put something here. You only have 100 characters, so it might just be, I was trying to figure out how I was experimenting with, this could be something really quick with your collages. Everything else for the collage is just going to be NA because it's a photo of your thoughts kind of thing. So it's not really height, width, depth, material kind of thing. And so that is it. That's the challenge. Is now we're on the run. We're on the run to make it to the 26th. I'm having you guys turn it in a little bit earlier because College Board likes to crash and it likes to kick you off. Like, and so, like, for instance, you guys are going to go through and just like vomit all of your thoughts and ideas into this little brainstorming paper, but you also just have a Google Doc that's just blank, and that's where we'll take this and kind of actually create what we're going to put inside here. Because what's always nice is you'll be working in here. If you don't, I can't make you do what I say, but if you think, you know what, I'm just going to start typing in here and I'm going to get all my thoughts out. And sometimes you'll go to here, which is the most important button in the world, save changes, and College Board will kick you out. And so everything you wrote is gone. And that's when you want to scream and throw chairs out the window. But
so save changes, like submit?
No, it's just a save.
Oh, okay.
Like, to submit your portfolio, you have to actually go up to forward portfolio. So it forces you through all of these before you can even, like, let's say for instance, with Julian's, I forward my portfolio. It'll tell you you can't, like, incomplete, like it won't let you send it to me. So it's just literally just saving it. Like, even with that picture I put in, let's see if it saved it. Yep, it's gone because I didn't save it. Because College Board is like, hey, no. You wanted life to be easy? No, we don't want that. And so that's why we're going to do it on a separate doc, because what we're going to do is copy and paste that bad boy in. You're not going to type in this area because, one, it doesn't pick up grammatical errors, but Google Docs will. And they're not grading on like that stuff, but if there's enough grammatical errors, you want to try to cause as little confusion or worry as you possibly can. Like, if they're struggling to read through your written evidence, it's almost like a bad taste in their mouth when they keep reviewing the rest of your portfolio, and you don't want that. You want to just be very streamlined. Like, this is what I'm talking about. So that's why I'm going to help you with that. But what I need is this. What do you have? What are you thinking? What are you using? Why are you using it? don't be intimidated by this. I'm forcing you to write more because you're going to write less. You know,
Yeah.
it won't let you have that much information. And if you want, you can go in and today log in and just put in these guys. Pick one and put it in for numbers 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, because you'll also selected works. We haven't gone over this much because basically you have 5 spots, but um, you're gonna pick your top three sculptures, the best one where you're like, these are like the magic makers. Like these are the ones that I they came out so well. I'm really proud of them. And you'll put those in like your first sculpture, second sculpture, third sculpture. It'll come from what you've already done. Um, and then number 4 and number 5, same thing. Go back up, pick the, whichever one that you've chosen to use, drop them in, NA, 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 NA.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want, like, let's say today you're like, I can put those photos in, they're ready to go. That's fine. It's just really this idea of starting. Don't and even like let's say you upload a photo and you upload some more and you're like, I kind of want number 3 to be the first one. That's okay because we can actually switch them around. Like it's very, very easy to make number 5 your first photo. So just get them in there and then we can start to like reorganize which one's going to go where. Because you're still telling a story. I started here and it led me to here. So it's not so much, oh, this is my best work in the beginning, my so-so, and then my best at the end. It's kind of more along the lines of where did you go? Where did you go in the thought process? Do you have any questions, Gracie? Besides fear and your tears?
Then no.
Yeah, and don't AP, what's tough is that when you think of AP art, you're like, oh, okay, well, I just gotta make some sculptures and I like making art, so this isn't gonna be too bad. And it's not. I think people get very nervous about the written portion because we're not often asked why. Why did you make it? Why did you make that way? Why did you use that? Why that material? What is that supposed to mean? And so now it does. Don't be intimidated. Don't you're not wrong. Like that's the biggest thing to remember.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. You are the artist. We just want to pick your brain. And right now, as the end of the year, and as all of us are forced online, you don't want your brain picked.
Oh.
I just want to sleep, Mr. Tunde. I know.
Yeah.